that I grew up where people are scared of when you criticize the government, you can disappear. So, my grandma would, tell us not to openly criticize or question the government. And so when I went to college, I started hearing names that I never heard back when I was young, like Benigno Ninoy Aquino. I didn't know him at all. They were not in our book. Those opposition leaders, they're not in our books. We don't see them on the news and things like that. And so I came to know about Ninoy when he came back and he was assassinated. And so that's when people started, young people like you now, we were out on the streets, because it started, in college, that's when you learn about these things. The professors would openly, within the school boundaries, of course, they would talk about, this. But the elementary, the public schools are so controlled by the Marcoses, by the government. Everything, textbook, everything. Nutriban, I didn't know that Nutriban wasn't Marcos, program at all. We were told that they were Marcos in, very great program.
Oh, Nutriban is like they're like mass-produced like breads.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah.
To try to combat like childhood hunger.
Right. It's a U.S. program.
U.S.
actually.
program too.
Right. Yeah. But claimed by the Marcoses or the Marcos loyalists at least, and so now that's one of the fake news that was, that went viral also. So anyway, why we joined. That was after the snap elections. So Marcos was confident that he's going to win if he called for a snap election. And of course, all the fraud in elections, when there's a dictator, as we know now, a dictator will always win a landslide because they control the election. I mean, not just in the Philippines, now we know in many countries, the dictators would always win. That's why they stay, because they have total control of the election. So, so Cardinal Sin called for for the people to come out on the street after the military leaders, two military officers, Enrile and Ramos, when they turned their back, from Marcos, then they were gonna order to be. We heard that they're gonna be killed if the people don't, come out. So we became the human barricades. That's how it started. So it was amazing because people were just flooding the street all over, millions and millions of people. We ended up, we were stationed in one of the TV stations, where because they were stopping all the TV stations to broadcast. So we were assigned there, and someone was shot there, and we were told that we have wet shirts to cover our faces because they said they're gonna, what's the term for it?
Tear gas?
Yeah, the tear gas. They're gonna disperse the crowd, to tear gas. So we were there, I would say about 3 days, 2 to 3 days on the street. Food just kept coming, it was just like probably the rallies of Lenny and Kiko. Food just kept coming because there's so much, bayanihan, there's so much caring for people, looking after each other. So we will survive. I don't remember getting thirsty. I don't remember getting hungry. And we were just there praying with the people until the last night, at first I didn't believe that the Marcos are gone, that they're taken by the U.S. government from the Malacanang. And it was it's like a New Year's. Like everybody was just so happy. And yeah, a lot of details I forgot already, but but the feeling, it's good to relieve the feeling, Thank you.
The presidency, running on that platform, yeah. And I'm just trying to remember what I would see my cousins in the Philippines post. And I know, like, he was very uncouth. He just talks. Yeah, yeah. He wasn't very polite, not polite at all. But my cousins would support him because they're saying he's making Philippines a better place. Like, how? And they would say, because of the drug war, he's getting rid of criminals, he's getting rid of crime, all that. And he used his experience as a mayor of Davao City and saying that, you know, it's the ninth safest city in the world, and just, you know, kept spouting that as truth. But what people don't know is that it has has the highest murder rate and the second highest rape rate in the Philippines. So but he kept riding on the coattails of, you know, I made this city safe, I'm gonna make Philippines safe, I'm gonna get rid of all these illegal drug operations. So that got into urging Filipinos, you know, regular citizens, into fighting against those illegal drugs, you know, creating this war on drugs. And that was urging Filipinos to take it upon themselves to be vigilantes, kill anybody that's even just suspected as drug addicts. Duterte was using some flawed, exaggerated data to support his claim that the Philippines is becoming a narco state. But according to the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, Philippines has a low prevalence of rate of drug users compared to the global average. And he claimed that there were 3 million drug addicts, but the drugs board in the Philippines, they only estimated about 1.8 million, and it was mostly cannabis. So there was some, you know, finagling of
Very aware of just this very dependent state that it's in when we really want to see true freedom and sovereignty in the Philippines. But we do have to remember, at least in this past administration under Duterte, right? You know, they've continued to make use of the military and police to act with impunity, targeting the poor and human rights defenders. So the, you know, 30,000s we're hearing in the drug war, the hundreds of extrajudicial killings, and we even go back to Marcos, and now we have another Marcos. There's a lot of worry that there's more of all of this military power that's being that's growing and is getting funded from sources overseas, is just going to go back and hurt our people. And while we're in the pandemic, right, we've seen that the Philippine government has prioritized things like counterinsurgency and surveillance and red tagging instead of social services. So we see, like, right during this time, there's been the targeting of Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Ressa, the shutdown of ABS-CBN, red tagging US-based activists, including those that are in our organization, Malaya. And during this time, there was also the purchase of $3.8 million worth of aircraft and weapons from the US, though there was $2 billion worth that was approved. When maybe we need more vaccines or mass testing, this is actually then where the money is going. And now that we know that Marcos Jr. is, you know, set up to be inaugurated on June 30th, he will be able to make use of those things above, as well as things like the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020, which as a whole, right, shows that the country has really been relying not on itself. It doesn't have enough money to fund all of these programs, but really largely through our tax dollars. So we keep bringing up, you know, the ties we have here in the U.S. because our big campaign is the Philippine Human Rights Act, which, you know, aims to suspend you know, military security assistance to the Philippines until there are certain reforms that are put in place, making sure that those who are committing these human rights violations are held accountable. And during this period, we actually got to meet with Ro Khanna a few times. Actually, recently we got to meet with him in person and actually update him on the status of the Philippine elections. Also, right now as we're talking, I'm wearing a shirt from this too. So every year the Philippine president does the State of the Nation address, but here also in the Bay Area we do the People's State of the Nation address, just like they also do in the Philippines, also a big demonstration. But we go out in front of the consulate as it represents the Philippine government here, and we share, like, while Bongbong Marcos is going to share something about what he thinks the state of the Philippines is, we're also going to draw attention to the people's concerns. So some forms that we've taken of protest have included, last year we did a street mural, so we blocked off the street and people were able to chalk and paint right there, and they couldn't stop us because we had so many people. The year before that, we did a car caravan, and so we held Sutter Street for, what was it, like 3 hours, full of all of the different cars and honking, and we had like Ruby Ibarra perform, and there was just a lot of things going on there. So it was a really good show of our people power. I think, right, we keep talking about makibaka, wag matakot, like dare to struggle, don't be afraid. We need that now more than ever, so definitely want to invite everybody to continue to get involved, and thank you all for coming out today.